The soft blue glow from Lily's skin lit up the dark corners of the hydroponics lab as she moved between the rows of plants. Her natural light, a feature all shimmers shared, helped the plants grow better than any artificial system. She touched one of the leaves gently, careful not to damage it with even the slightest pressure. Like all her people, she was fragile. Their bones were light and hollow, their skin delicate like tissue paper. The peace of her morning routine broke when heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. Lily quickly moved behind a large plant container. She knew those footsteps belonged to the new human maintenance worker. Her people had warned her about humans. They were strong, fast, and had evolved from predators. The stories said they could run for hours without stopping and lift many times their own weight. The footsteps stopped at the lab door. Lily held her breath as it slid open with a soft hiss. The human walked in, carrying a toolbox that would have been too heavy for 3 shimmers to lift together. This was the closest she had ever been to him. His name was Tom, she remembered from the crew files. He wasn't as tall as she had expected, but his movements showed the easy strength her people feared. Tom walked to the water recycling system and knelt down beside it. "Hello," he called out softly. "The system's showing some problems. Is anyone here?" Lily stayed silent, watching as he opened his toolbox. Her curiosity fought with her fear as she observed him work. His hands, which could probably crush metal, moved with surprising gentleness as he checked the delicate parts of the system. A small alert flashed on her tablet. The nutrient mix in Section 7 needed adjusting. It was on the other side of the room, past where Tom was working. She could wait until he left, but the plant needed the nutrients now. Their survival was her responsibility. Taking a deep breath, Lily stepped out from her hiding place. The motion made her skin glow a bit brighter from nervousness. Tom looked up, and for a moment, they just stared at each other. "Oh, hey there," Tom said, keeping his voice quiet like he was talking to a scared animal. Which, Lily realized, was probably exactly what she looked like right now. "I'm just fixing the water pressure. It was running a bit low in this section." Lily nodded stiffly and began to edge around the room, keeping close to the wall. Tom went back to his work, but she could tell he was being extra still, trying not to frighten her. This confused her. Weren't humans supposed to be aggressive? She reached the nutrient control panel and began adjusting the levels with her thin fingers. A quiet clang made her jump. Tom had dropped a tool. Before she could think, she let out a small squeak of surprise. Her skin flashed bright blue for a second, lighting up the whole room. "Sorry about that," Tom said, picking up the tool. He was smiling, but not in a scary way. "I didn't mean to startle you. The plants look amazing, by the way. I've never seen anything like them." Lily's hand went to one of the nearby plants automatically. "They're from my homeworld," she said, speaking to him for the first time. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They grow in caves there. That's why they like our light." Tom nodded, looking genuinely interested. "That explains why they're doing so well under your care. I was wondering why this was the only section that never seems to need major repairs." A small burst of pride cut through Lily's fear. She had worked hard to keep this section running perfectly. "The systems just need gentle handling," she said, her voice a little stronger. "Well, I'll try to be extra gentle then," Tom said, turning back to his work. His movements seemed even more careful now, although Lily wasn't sure if that was for her benefit or the equipment's. When Tom finished his repairs and left, Lily stayed by the nutrient panel, thinking. The human had been nothing like the story said. Yes, she had seen his strength and how easily he carried that heavy toolbox and worked with the metal panels. But he had used that strength carefully, controlled it. Maybe, she thought, looking at the now perfectly running water system, humans were more complex than her people believed. She would watch him more, she decided. Not from fear this time, but from curiosity. 3 weeks had passed since Lily's first conversation with Tom. She still felt nervous around humans, but she had started to wave back when he greeted her in the corridors. It was a small change, but a change nonetheless. That morning, she was checking the growth rates of her plants when the first warning came. The station's lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Lily looked up from her work, her skin pulsing with a worried blue glow. The main computer's voice filled the air. Warning. Asteroid field detected. Impact probability 60%. All crew members, please prepare for emergency protocols. Lily's hands shook as she saved her research data. She had trained for emergencies, but real danger was different from simulations. Through the lab's window, she could see small rocks already zipping past the station. They weren't the big ones yet, just the front wave. The real danger was still coming. The second warning blared louder. Alert. Defense system malfunction detected. Shield generators operating at 30% capacity. All personnel must evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Fear made Lily's skin flash brightly. The defense systems were supposed to destroy or deflect any asteroids before they hit the station. With the shields failing, the station would be torn apart. She started gathering her most important samples, placing them carefully in a protective case. The station shuddered. A small asteroid had struck one of the outer sections. The lights flickered again, longer this time. When they came back on, they were dimmer. Emergency power, Lily realized. That wasn't supposed to happen so quickly. She heard running footsteps in the corridor. Other crew members heading to the escape pods. All personnel must evacuate immediately. The computer repeated. Time to major impact. 15 minutes. Lily sealed her sample case and headed for the door. That's when everything went wrong. The station rocked with another impact, harder this time. The lights went out completely for several seconds. When they came back, the door to the hydroponics lab was sealed shut. Emergency containment protocols engaged in Section 7. The computer announced. Hazardous material leak detected. No, Lily whispered. There were no hazardous materials in her lab. It had to be a malfunction. She ran to the control panel, her fingers flying over the emergency override. Nothing happened. The system wasn't responding. Through the lab's windows, she could see people running past in the corridor. She banged on the reinforced glass, but in the chaos, nobody noticed her glowing form. The station's emergency lighting cast strange shadows, making it hard to see anything clearly. Lily tried her communicator. Static filled the channel, but she thought she could hear voices. Help! I'm trapped in the hydroponics lab. The doors won't open. The only response was more static. Another impact rattled the station. This one was closer. She could hear metal groaning somewhere above her. The computer's voice had changed now, becoming more urgent. Major impact imminent. 10 minutes to collision. All personnel must reach escape pods immediately. Lily's skin was glowing almost white with terror now. She ran to her workstation and tried to access the main computer. Most systems were down, but she managed to get into the security cameras. She could see the evacuation happening. Crew members running, carrying whatever they could grab quickly. The camera showing the escape pod bay showed pods launching one after another. A new sound caught her attention. A deep, grinding noise from somewhere in the walls. The station's structure was starting to fail. Through the lab windows, she could see pieces of debris floating past. The asteroid field was getting thicker. Warning. Hull breach detected in Section 12. Emergency bulkheads engage. 8 minutes to major impact. Lily sank down beside her beloved plants. She had always felt safe among them, but now they couldn't help her. Her communicator was still broadcasting static. The escape pods were launching. Soon, everyone would be gone, and she would be alone on the dying station. The computer's voice came one last time. 7 minutes to major impact. All remaining personnel must evacuate immediately. This is your final warning. Through the security feed, Lily watched the last group of crew members running toward the escape pods. Among them, she spotted Tom. He was helping an injured crew member walk faster. Just before they turned the corner, He looked back over his shoulder, as if checking if anyone else needed help. Then they were gone, and Lily was alone with the sound of the station breaking apart around her. Tom helped the injured crew member into the escape pod and made sure she was strapped in safely. His heart was pounding, but years of emergency training kept his hands steady. The pod was almost full. They needed to launch soon, or they'd all be in danger. The station shook again. Through the pod's window, he could see more asteroids approaching. They were getting bigger now. The computer's voice echoed through the station. 6 minutes to major impact. Final warning for evacuation. That's everyone, another crew member said, reaching for the pod's launch controls. We need to go now. Tom was about to agree when his pocket buzzed. His personal tablet was picking up a weak signal. He pulled it out, frowning at the screen. Most communications were down, but his maintenance override was still connected to some of the station's systems. A small red dot blinked on the station's layout, a life sign in the hydroponics lab. Wait, he said, his mind racing. There's someone still in there. That's impossible, the pod's pilot said. We checked every section. Everyone's accounted for. But Tom remembered seeing the gentle blue glow of the shimmer scientists earlier that day. Lily, she always worked late in the lab. Had anyone checked? Really checked? With all the system malfunctions, would they have even noticed her? The station's metal frame groaned. 5 minutes to major impact, the computer announced. We have to launch, someone said. We can't wait any longer. Tom looked at his tablet again. The red dot was still there, moving around the lab. Someone was definitely trapped. He took a deep breath and made his decision. Launch the pod. I'm going back. Are you crazy? The pilot grabbed his arm. You'll die. Tom pulled away, already reaching for his emergency suit in the pod's storage locker. There's another pod in Section 6. I can get there after I check the lab. He didn't mention that Section 6 was in the opposite direction from the hydroponics lab, or that he'd have to cross several damaged areas to reach it. The station's falling apart. Someone shouted, You'll never make it. Maybe not, Tom said, sealing his suit. But I have to try. He stepped out of the pod and shut the door behind him. Through the window, he could see the other crew members arguing, pointing at him. Then the pod's engines fired, and they were gone. Tom ran. The station's corridors were dark now, lit only by emergency lights and the glow of distant asteroids through the windows. His boots magnetized automatically when the artificial gravity flickered, keeping him from floating away. 4 minutes to major impact, the computer reminded him. He reached a sealed emergency door. The power was out here. He'd have to do it manually. Tom grabbed the emergency handle and pulled. His muscles strained against the door's weight. Slowly, groaning, it opened just enough for him to squeeze through. The next corridor was worse. Parts of the ceiling had come down, and the air was full of floating debris. Tom's suit sensors warned him of hull breaches nearby. He pushed forward, checking his tablet. The red dot was still there. He reached a communications panel and tried to access it. Most channels were static, but he managed to connect to the lab's internal system. Lily, are you there? Can you hear me? For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then, faintly, he heard a voice. Tom, is that you? Yes. Are you okay? I'm trapped. The doors sealed when the power failed, and the override isn't working. Another impact rocked the station. Tom had to grab a wall rail to stay upright. Hold on. I'm coming to get you. No. Lily's voice was frightened. It's too dangerous. The station's breaking up. 3 minutes to major impact, the computer announced calmly. I'm not leaving you behind, Tom said firmly. He checked his tablet for the fastest route. Half the corridors were blocked or depressurized now, but he could still make it. Maybe, if he was fast enough, strong enough. Through the station's windows, he could see the asteroid field clearly now. The rocks were massive, some as big as small ships. One of those would tear the station in half. 2 minutes and 30 seconds to major impact. Tom started running again. He had no time to think about the danger, about whether this was crazy or impossible. Someone needed help. Nothing else mattered. Through the security cameras, Lily watched Tom's progress with a mixture of fear and amazement. He moved through the station like nothing she had ever seen before. When a section of ceiling collapsed, he simply pushed through it. When a door was stuck, he forced it open with his bare hands. Her people would have found such physical tasks impossible. 2 minutes to major impact, the computer announced. Tom's voice crackled through her communicator. Lily, I'm almost there. Can you see any other way into the lab? The main corridor is blocked. Lily checked her screens. Most of the cameras were dead now, but she could still access the station's layout. There's a maintenance tunnel, she said. It runs above the lab, but she hesitated. The entrance is in a section with no gravity. Perfect, Tom said, and Lily could hear him changing direction. That's actually faster. A massive asteroid struck the station. The impact sent tremors through the entire structure. Lily's screens flickered, and she heard metal tearing somewhere nearby. Through the lab's windows, she could see pieces of the station's outer hull floating away into space. Warning, the computer said. Hull integrity critical. 90 seconds to major impact. On her remaining security feed, Lily watched as Tom reached the zero-gravity section. He didn't hesitate. Using his suit's magnetic boots, he walked straight up the wall to the maintenance tunnel's entrance. The panel was sealed shut, designed to only open with special tools. Tom gripped the edges of the panel and pulled. His muscles strained against his suit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a screech of protesting metal, the panel tore free. Lily's skin glowed brighter in surprise. She had never seen anything like it. I'm in the tunnel. Tom's voice came through the static. How far to the lab? 20 meters straight ahead, Lily said, checking her layout. But Tom, the tunnel structure is failing. The sensors show. Another impact cut her off. This one was close. Too close. The lab's walls shook so hard that plants fell from their containers. Warning lights flashed everywhere. 60 seconds to major impact, the computer said. Station structural failure imminent. In the tunnel, Tom was moving fast now. With no gravity, he pulled himself along using the maintenance rails. Pieces of debris floated around him, some moving fast enough to be dangerous. He dodged them without slowing down. Lily heard banging above her head. Tom had reached the lab's ceiling access panel, but this panel was sealed too, and from her angle, she could see that the frame was bent from the station's damage. Even for a human, it would be almost impossible to open. 45 seconds to major impact. Tom, Lily called through her communicator. The panel's too damaged. You need to get to the escape pod. Not without you. Tom's voice was strained with effort. Lily could hear him pulling at the panel. The whole ceiling creaked. Through her last working camera, Lily saw something that made her skin pale to almost white. A massive asteroid, bigger than any before, was heading straight for their section of the station. 30 seconds to major impact. The ceiling panel suddenly bulged inward with a loud crack. Tom was forcing it open through sheer strength. Metal screamed as he bent it back. A gap appeared, small at first, then wider. 20 seconds to major impact. The gap was almost big enough now. Lily could see Tom's suit through it. He had braced himself against the tunnel's walls, using his legs to push against the panel while pulling with his arms. 10 seconds. With a final roar of effort, Tom tore the panel open. He dropped down into the lab, landing next to Lily. Up close, she could see how hard he was breathing inside his suit. 5 seconds. Tom looked at the massive asteroid through the lab's window, then at Lily. Without a word, he grabbed the sample case she was holding and took her arm. Impact imminent. Hold on to me, Tom said. And whatever happens, don't let go. The asteroid filled the entire window now. Lily's skin glowed with fear, but she wrapped her arms around Tom's suit. She felt his muscles tense, ready to move. Then the asteroid hit, and their world exploded into chaos. The impact threw them across the lab. Tom twisted in the air, wrapping himself around Lily to protect her from the collision. They hit the wall hard, but his body took the force of the impact. Emergency lights flashed red as the station's hull broke apart around them. Emergency, emergency. Station structure compromised. The computer's voice broke up between bursts of static. Total failure in 5 minutes. Tom pulled back slightly, checking if Lily was hurt. Her skin glowed dimly with fear, but she seemed unharmed. "Are you okay?" "Yes," she whispered, surprised. Despite the violent impact, his grip had been carefully controlled, protecting her fragile form without crushing her. "How did you? Why did you?" "Later," Tom said, looking around quickly. "We need to move. Now." The lab was falling apart, pieces of the ceiling breaking off and floating away as the gravity systems failed. Through the broken windows, they could see the stars spinning as the station slowly turned. Lily held onto Tom's suit as he pushed off from the wall, guiding them through the wreckage. Her mind was racing. Everything she had been taught about humans painted them as dangerous, uncontrolled creatures. But Tom's every movement, even now, was precise. Powerful, yes, but carefully measured. They reached the corridor outside the lab. The impact had torn huge holes in the station's hull. Space was visible through the gaps, beautiful and terrifying. The air was gone, and without gravity, debris floated everywhere. "The escape pods," Lily said through their suit-to-suit communication. "They're all gone." "Not all of them," Tom replied, checking his tablet with his free hand while keeping Lily secure with the other. "There's a backup pod in Section 6. It's meant for emergencies like this." Another piece of the station broke away nearby. The force of it sent them spinning, but Tom caught a hanging wire and steadied them. Lily watched in amazement as his gloved hand gripped the metal cable that would have cut through a shimmer's skin like paper. "We have to cross through the damaged sections," Tom explained, already moving them forward. "It's going to be rough. Keep holding on to me." As they made their way through the dying station, Lily began to understand something. The very things that made humans seem dangerous to her people, their strength, their endurance, their quick reactions, were now keeping her alive. Tom navigated through gaps that would have been too small for a rescue team, pushed aside debris that would have trapped them, and kept moving even as the station continued to break apart. "Tom," she said as they paused at a junction, waiting for a stream of debris to pass. "Why did you come back for me? Your pod was safe. You could have died." "Couldn't leave you behind," he said simply, checking both directions before choosing their path. "It's not what humans do. Not what we should do, anyway. But my people, we always said humans were aggressive, dangerous." Tom laughed softly, even as he pushed them through a particularly tight space. "We can be, but being strong doesn't mean you have to hurt people. It means you can protect them." A massive creaking sound echoed through the station. More of the structure was giving way. Tom moved faster, pulling them through the wreckage with careful strength. "Warning," the computer's voice came one last time. "Critical failure imminent. 3 minutes until total structural collapse." As they rushed through the remains of the station, Lily's glow brightened with a new understanding. She had always seen human strength as something to fear, but now she saw it differently. Every powerful movement Tom made was controlled. Every burst of speed was precise. Every show of strength was protective. There, Tom pointed ahead. Through a torn section of hull, they could see it. The backup escape pod, still attached to its dock. The path to it was littered with debris and broken metal, but it was there. Their last chance. "We're not going to make it," Lily said, seeing how much distance they still had to cover. "Yes, we will," Tom said with that strange human certainty. "Trust me." And Lily realized that she did trust him. This human, this member of a species she had been taught to fear, had risked everything to save her. His fierce nature wasn't about destruction, it was about preservation. The station groaned again, breaking apart faster now. Tom tightened his grip on her, carefully, always carefully. "Hold on," he said. "We're going to move fast." Tom pushed off against the wall, propelling them both through the zero-gravity corridor. Lily held tight to his suit, her skin glowing brighter as they picked up speed. Debris flew past them, pieces of metal, broken equipment, fragments of the station's hull. Tom dodged each obstacle with quick, precise movements. 2 minutes until total structural collapse. The computer's warning echoed through their suit communications. They were moving faster now, Tom using every piece of stable debris as a launch point. His movements had a fluid grace that Lily hadn't expected from someone so strong. He could have easily crushed her fragile form with his powerful movements, but even in their desperate rush, his grip remained carefully controlled. A large section of the ceiling suddenly broke free ahead of them. Tom reacted instantly, pushing off against a wall to change their direction. The massive piece of metal passed so close that Lily could have touched it. Her skin pulsed with fear, but Tom's steady grip kept her anchored. "The dock controls," Lily said, pointing ahead. "They're damaged." The backup pod was still attached to the station, but the control panel that would release it was sparking and broken. Tom reached the dock platform and grabbed a support beam to stop their momentum. The pod was just meters away now, but without the release mechanism, it was useless. They could see more asteroids approaching through the broken hull. The station wouldn't survive another impact. 1 minute until total structural collapse. "There has to be a manual release," Tom said, looking around quickly. "Every system has a backup." His eyes found a red handle near the base of the dock. It was meant for emergencies, designed to be pulled only if all other systems failed. Lily followed his gaze and understood the problem immediately. The handle. It's made to resist accidental activation. It takes 3 shimmer engineers working together to pull it. She looked at the approaching asteroids. "We don't have time to wait for help." Tom's response was to move them closer to the handle. "Good thing I'm not a shimmer engineer then." He secured Lily to a stable part of the dock with one hand. "Hold on here. This might get rough." Lily watched as Tom gripped the emergency handle. The metal was thick, designed to resist extreme force. She had seen the calculations. It needed over 1,000 pounds of force to activate. Even for a human, it should have been impossible. 30 seconds until total structural collapse. Tom planted his feet against the dock's frame and pulled. His muscles strained against his suit. The handle didn't move. He adjusted his grip and pulled harder. Lily could hear his breathing getting heavier through the suit's comm. "Tom," she said softly, "you don't have to." "Yes," he grunted. "I do." He pulled again, putting everything he had into it. The handle creaked. Then, slowly, it began to move. The station shuddered around them. Through the broken hull, they could see the asteroids getting closer. They had seconds, at most. With a roar that Lily could hear even through the vacuum of space, Tom gave one final pull. The handle broke free with such force that it nearly sent him spinning away, but he kept his grip on both the handle and the dock. The pod's clamps released instantly. Tom didn't waste a second. He pushed off from the dock, pulling Lily with him, and they flew toward the pod's airlock. Behind them, the station was breaking apart faster now. 10 seconds until total structural collapse. Tom got the airlock open and pushed Lily inside first. He followed quickly, sealing the door behind them. The pod systems came to life automatically as it recognized their presence. 5 seconds. Tom strapped Lily into a seat, his movements still careful despite their desperate rush. He jumped into the pilot's chair and hit the emergency launch sequence. 3, 2. The pod's engines fired. They felt the thrust push them back in their seats as they shot away from the dying station. Through the pod's window, they watched as the asteroid struck. The station broke apart in a spectacular display of light and debris. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was their breathing and the soft hum of the pod's engines. Lily's skin had taken on a gentle, calm blue glow, the color of relief. Finally, she turned to look at Tom. He had removed his helmet and was checking the pod's systems with steady hands. Those same hands that had just performed impossible feats of strength were now delicately adjusting the sensitive controls. "Thank you," she said simply. The words felt small compared to what he had done, but they were all she had. Tom looked up and smiled. That's what friends are for. 3 months later, Lily stood before the Galactic Council. Her skin glowed with a mix of nervousness and excitement as she faced the assembled representatives of 100 different species. The grand chamber was packed. Everyone wanted to hear about the incident that had changed how Shimmers viewed humans. The council leader, a tall crystal being, spoke first. "You wish to propose changes to the safety protocols regarding human crew members on research stations." "Yes," Lily said, her voice stronger than it would have been before her experience. "Our current protocols are based on fear and misunderstanding. I'm here to share what I learned when a human saved my life." In the audience, Tom shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He hadn't wanted to come, but Lily had insisted. He wore his formal maintenance uniform, which still looked a bit odd on him. Lily touched the display controls, and images appeared in the air around her, security footage from the station's final moments. "We've always seen human strength as something to fear, but watch carefully." The footage showed Tom racing through the dying station. The council members murmured as they watched him tear through obstacles that would have stopped any other species. But Lily drew their attention to different details: how he cushioned her from impacts, how he controlled his movements to protect her fragile form, how every display of power was aimed at preservation rather than destruction. "Humans aren't just strong," she continued. "They're protective. They use their strength to help others." Did you know that Tom wasn't the only human who went back for someone that day? On other stations hit by the asteroid storm, 14 humans risked their lives to save others. 12 succeeded. The crystal being leaned forward. "But their aggressive nature is part of their protective instinct," Lily interrupted politely. Her skin pulsed with conviction. "When Tom rescued me, he wasn't being aggressive. He was being fierce in defense of life. There's a difference." She brought up new images, statistics, reports, incident logs. Since humans joined our space programs, accident-related deaths have dropped by 60%. Their quick reactions and physical capabilities have saved countless lives. But our fear keeps them isolated, relegated to maintenance work, treated with suspicion. In his seat, Tom watched with growing amazement. He had never thought of his actions that day as anything special. He had just done what needed to be done. But seeing it through Lily's eyes made him understand why it had meant so much to her people. "I propose," Lily said, her glow brightening, "that instead of fearing human strength, we embrace it, not just in emergencies, but in our daily operations. My own research has improved significantly since I started working directly with Tom. His ability to handle heavy equipment and make quick adjustments has doubled our efficiency." She looked directly at the council leader. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. We've survived by specializing. Some species focus on intelligence, others on technology, others on diplomatic skills. Humans offer something unique: the combination of physical capability and the instinct to use that capability to protect others." The chamber was silent for a moment. Then a Shimmer Council member spoke up. "You trusted this human with your life. As a Shimmer scientist, that goes against everything we've been taught. How can you be so sure about them?" Lily's glow softened. "Because Tom didn't just save my life. He risked his own to do it. He could have stayed in his escape pod. He could have left me behind. By every logical calculation, that's what he should have done. But humans don't always follow logic. Sometimes they follow something better, their hearts. She gestured to the final image, a simple shot of her and Tom working together in the new station's lab. She was adjusting delicate equipment while he carefully handled the heavier components. They moved around each other with easy trust. "This is what our future could look like," Lily said. "Not fear, but cooperation. Not isolation, but integration. Not weakness or strength, but each species contributing what they do best." The council chambers filled with discussion. Tom caught Lily's eye and smiled. Whatever the council decided, he knew things would be different now. One small act of rescue had opened the door to understanding between their species. As the council prepared to vote, Lily's skin glowed with the soft blue of hope. Sometimes the fiercest hearts were also the gentlest. She had learned that from a human who had torn through metal to save her, yet never once bruised her delicate skin. The future looked bright, and not just because of her natural glow.